You know what intellectual property is? It's the it's the perceived execution or the proposed execution of an idea. You know it matters because number one, it determines who makes money off of it. Number two, it determines how it's being executed. And number three, it determines who can use the intellectual property besides yourself. And then on top of that, it's like, okay, how can I actually take care of my intellectual property? There's a few ways you can do this. Number one, get you a lawyer. Get some good representation. It could be someone. I do it in a more casual way. I'm not a lawyer, to emphasize that again, but I do give guidance as far as supporting people and towards actually recommending lawyers to people and stuff like that. I can't recommend you a lawyer because it's unique situations with the people that I have been able to connect. And of course, it varies from city, state, federal, all those different things. Stuff that is well above my pay grade, literally and figuratively. But find a way to get representation. It's worth too much. It's worth too much. Some of the passive income streams I have right now, some of the ways that my family's eating as we speak, it's based on things that I fought for with a lawyer years ago, approaching decades, and we're not getting any younger. So if you're watching and you might be in your 20s or 30s, I'm in my 40s. So folks that are in their 20s and 30s, I respect where you're coming from. You just you want to see your art out. I know what it's like to be hungry like that. I get it. That doesn't mean you shouldn't protect your intellectual property as much as possible. So then when you're mid-career, I think that's what we call us when we're mid-career, or close to my parents' situation when you're late career or late stages in your career, then you have the intellectual property to do more with. So get a good lawyer, get representation, make sure that you're taking care of your business, or as they say, make sure that you're taking care of not just your business, but the business of the business. You being the best artist possible, that's fantastic. You being the best artist possible and owning your work, that's the business of the business. I'm really into music. You can see patron saint John Coltrane above my head. And I love listening to artists, musicians, particularly in hip hop, talk about their record deals. And there's so many young brothers and sisters who sign a deal for 2 million, 3 million, 4 million, which sounds great. I'm not a millionaire yet, but that sounds fantastic. After lawyer fees, it might be 2 million. You might give half of it away to taxes and fees. But what they're giving away is intellectual property that their great great grandchildren could be eating off of. Got to think about it. So we got to think long term. Got to think long term. And yeah, the getting lawyer representation is the best route to that. And make sure it's an organization or a lawyer that you trust, not someone who's actually put up by the people that you're negotiating with. Good words of advice for everybody. If you do it yourself, you automatically have the intellectual property ownership automatically. If I come up again with a melody in my head and I have a small piano over here and I start playing on the piano or I write down the notes, that's automatically intellectual property. Now, that being defensible in court, that gets a little bit more complicated. But the main point is that once you create something, we often get complicated with the intellectual property when we start bringing in other people to get it out there. So if it's a distribution network and they're going to help you get your music out, make sure you read the labels. Shout out to RZA. You got to read the labels. You have to. If you're not inclined or you're feeling too lazy to read the labels, which is fine. Or maybe you're all like, I don't understand what any of these words mean. I have 2 degrees in journalism, so I have a super strong bias towards knowing a lot of words. You might be like, I don't know what fiduciary means, which is fine. Get you someone that knows what fiduciary means. Don't just brush it off. You got to know what the words mean because this is a commitment. This is a commitment. And that might mean that you might hear your music on the radio or your book might be on the shelf somewhere, which is fantastic. It could be a bestseller. I wish you luck. But then you want to do something else with it. And they're like, no, we own the rights. You're not going to do that. In fact, you need to make a sequel to it. Otherwise, you're not going to have this intellectual property again. That's up to them because you signed the dotted line. But as soon as you create something, if it's within the context of your own thing, the audiobook for the Complete Bring Your Worth collection, I did it in the closet of my previous house. I really own it. There was no studio, nothing. Just it was recorded there. So I'm able to control the IP in ways that I might not be able to if I worked with a different organization. So I would encourage you, if you can, get it as close as possible to finished within the means of your resources, your time, your energy, your money. Make it work. Because the further along you are, this applies to any art form, including VC funding. You know, I've done 2 startups. The further you can get to that finish line and it being complete, the more leverage you have and the more opportunity you have to actually keep your intellectual property, or at least keep most of that control. In partnership and in distribution, again, you have to read the fine print. I keep emphasizing it because it's important. And so many of us do not. We get excited about the advance, which is the money they give you up front. We get excited about just seeing our name in lights. I know what that's like, just wanting to see your name on the cover of something. It's a great feeling, but not as great of a feeling as knowing that you own the means of operation and the product from that, and that you're able to give that to your family or to your ancestors or to your mama or whomever. It's part of your legacy. Talking about contracts, 3 red flags you must look for in every contract. There's a classic episode. I might do an updated version of it. I'll be sure and put it in the links if I do. 3 red flags. Another short episode, less than 10 minutes, worth taking the time. As a freelancer, as a founder, as a speaker, I've probably signed several hundred contracts, maybe like 700 contracts, 800, 900. Been doing this for a while. And so there's certain patterns that have come up over the years, over the decades, as far as signing contracts. And that's a nice thing. I was sharing this with someone recently as a business coach and as a business owner and as a creator. You know, you guys have been rocking with me with this show. This will be the 5th year of the show coming up in December, because we're like at 4.5 years or so. And the nice thing about time is that it actually allows you to see the results of decisions that you made in the past. so I've been a business coach for about 10 years. Bless y'all that have allowed me to be with you on your journey. And some of y'all are coming back and some of y'all are doing like badass stuff. And I'm like, oh, wow, that's based on a conversation we had in 2018. Oh my God. And then in some cases, not as far as coaching clients, but some cases where decisions that were made, I was like, oh, man, I made that decision 15 years ago. Okay, we could have did better. This video is basically that energy of me basically saying, look, I've signed 700, 800 contracts, had tons of partnerships, dozens of partnerships, all this other stuff, that stuff behind the scenes. I've sold my company. Like I'm used to seeing contracts. These are the 3 things that you might want to pause. Doesn't mean don't sign them. Just like dating. There might be some red flags. There's always some red flags, some things that are a little bit off, but maybe the green flags will overcome it. At least be aware of the red flags. So if they come up later, you know what's happening. And my favorite book about negotiating, Value-Based Fees by Alan Weiss. Alan, I hope you're doing wonderful. Fantastic. Veteran salesperson, negotiator. Talking about how you can make sure that you bring your worth, pun intended, to any negotiation or situation. And the fact is, is that when you first get started with your intellectual property, whatever you're creating, music, book. I was talking to someone recently. They have a product that they want to get out, like an invention. Shout out to you if you're watching. Again, I hope the advice helped. But in all those cases, sometimes you're able to execute things all the way. And sometimes you can get it 50% there. But eventually, you can get it out, and maybe you need bigger distribution. You could have a book, and maybe you need representation to get on the road to do a book tour. Eventually, you're going to need other people. That's what I'm trying to say. That's why I'm highly recommending this book. I'm going to be recommending more and maybe do a deep dive on the book later on this year. But I bought this book when I was in a very intense negotiation. This book made difference of easily tens of thousands of dollars. It was fantastic. I cannot recommend the book more. In fact, I need to get a new copy because I just have the digital copy. I need to get a physical copy of it. Shout out to Alan. But it talks about how you can make sure that what you're negotiating is reflective of what you're bringing to the table. And again, I got my own publishing company. I'm wearing my clothes and in my little office space and all that stuff. Even I need other people. So I don't care how independent you are, you're eventually going to have to negotiate with other people. So it's important to go ahead and be direct and clear about what your values are, value-based, what your values are, what you're bringing to the table, and what you want to get out of the situation. You can be fair and equitable about it, but you got to come correct. Otherwise, it's way too easy to lose your intellectual property along the way. What situations have y'all been in as far as intellectual property, and have you been in situations where you had to get your intellectual property back? I've negotiated my intellectual property back. I'll share the story for another time, but I've negotiated my intellectual property back, and that gave me the opportunity to do more things with intellectual property. But I made sure it was a situation that made sense for the people or the organization that owned that intellectual property too. I wasn't just talking crazy, like, give me back my rights. No, it had to be a negotiation. What situations have y'all been in? Are the decisions that you might have regretted where you don't have that intellectual property or that creation anymore and you're trying to figure out a way out of it? Love to hear your comments in the stories or stories in the comments, vice versa. Must be opposite day. Your stories in the comments. And I will share some stories in the future, I promise. Yeah, I got some stories too. I'm entrepreneurial coach Damon Brown, here to help you as a side hustler, solopreneur, otherwise a non-traditional entrepreneur. You're watching Bring Your Worth TV live on Wednesdays at 1:11 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, Vegas time. You can subscribe for free. And you can grab the complete Bring Your Worth collection wherever fine books are sold, or listen to the audiobook by clicking the link right there. And we are learning about intellectual property one-on-one. A good aperitif, is that the one that's after? All right, I'm a food guy, but I always forget what's after. a good follow-up to this would be the brand new episode that just premiered a few days ago on Sunday, 3 Power Moves Any Artist Can Make. If you're watching the replay of this, you'll see the link above my big head. Otherwise, I appreciate y'all. Remember, you can always bring your worth. You can always build from now. Take care of yourselves and others.